I just arrived this morning and I'm just getting my bearings, so thank you very much for waiting for me and giving me your time. I'm especially honored to see the youth in the room as well. I hear they're youth ambassadors from communities whose ecosystems have been compromised. I am definitely heartened to see you here fighting for your future. 20 years ago, I was here. I was a 12-year-old. I was fighting for my future. And now I've joined the world in returning to Rio de Janeiro once again, but this time to fight for my children's future. What has happened in 20 years? Last week in the scientific journal Nature, scientists told us that we may be forcing a state shift in our planet's biosphere. We are putting such pressure on the Earth's ecosystems that we may be pushing the natural balance to a tipping point, like what was seen at the end of the last ice age 12,000 years ago. But this time, the transition will be human-caused, and we will be orders of magnitude faster than the 1,000-year transition that happened last time. The scientists suggest that this transition phase and the new state will not be comfortable for human beings. 20 years after Rio, we have not come close to achieving the sustainable world we knew we needed back then. I think we need to be honest about that. In 20 years, I have changed. I began high school after the Rio Summit in 1992. I played basketball, I enjoyed science, and at the same time I began to get invited to participate in many other world conferences. I began to speak around the world as a youth advocate on intergenerational justice. I was invited to UN's Rio +5, to PrepCom's for Rio +10, and I had the privilege of sitting on the Earth Charter Commission, and I'm very proud of the Earth Charter, a document that is slowly gaining support around the world as a code of ethics for how we conduct with respect to the Earth. I was at the Kyoto Protocol Conference in 1997 and Rio +10 in Johannesburg in 2002. However, over the years, as I was going to these conferences, I sensed sustainability was an issue losing traction. At the 10-year anniversary of Rio in Johannesburg in South Africa, they called the Earth Summit Rio -10 because it seemed that we were going backwards. And I slowly realized that the top-level politicians were not going to change the world for us. I realized that if we wanted to change the world, we had to find the solutions ourselves and implement them in our own communities, and then go out and demand the change from our politicians. I decided to focus on change from the ground up in my own home, with other communities and networks I could talk to, I could feel, I could see. I focused on citizen engagement. Now, 20 years on, citizen engagement hasn't been enough to filter up and change those in power. So 20 years later, I am again reevaluating how to positively affect change in the world. Today, I am ashamed of the environmental trend of the Government of Canada, my home country. 20 years ago, I was proud to share nationality with the likes of Maurice Strong and other leaders of the global sustainability movement. But we have been steadily erasing that leadership. With a majority Conservative government in power, we have seen a blatant and stark agenda to expand the Alberta tar fields, which is the largest construction site on the planet, to gut conservation legislation, to devalue science, and now to discredit environmental nonprofits in Canada. It came as no surprise that Canada finally left the Conference of the Parties and the Kyoto Protocol, even though they were one of the first governments to sign back in 1998. And I believe that this movement to the right in Canada reflects a larger, greater movement at large that we have seen since the Earth Summit in 1992. Though our ecosystems continue to decline in a tailspin terrifying to any biologist, the growth of the economy remains foremost for politicians and institutions clinging to power. And the collusion between government and corporations that we have seen in the last 20 years is enough to make any staunch believer in democracy lose faith. It is no wonder so many of my generation are so cynical. Concerned citizens and activists engage and speak up on local issues and organize and volunteer their time in good faith that our voices matter. But it is clear that the current global meta-strategy is to turn everything from nature into profit at a blistering pace and on a scale and a budget that dwarfs its opposition. 20 years on since Rio, we need nothing short of a massive paradigm shift to a strategic way of living that will carry our human race forward to a future with dignity. I'm a veteran environmentalist at age 32. I've committed the last 20 years of my life to trying to influence societal transformation to a way of life that promotes intergenerational justice. And for me, intergenerational justice is really what this word sustainability is about. And to me, the example of climate change is the classic example of an intergenerational crime. A crime created by a generation today and in the past that will affect untold generations in the future. I've done a lot in 20 years. I've grown up for one. But those 5 minutes speaking at the UN 20 years ago remains the most powerful action I have taken. It has certainly defined my life. Since then, I've received letters from people around the world so moved by a child speaking to world delegates at the UN. Years later, the internet was invented, and the video of that speech somehow made it onto YouTube, and millions around the world are watching it and still talking about this 6-minute video. Why? Why? Because of the most powerful tool belonging to the human race. The power of intergenerational love. As we look back on our progress since the Earth Summit in 1992, it would be easy to be discouraged. But today I am a mother, and I cannot afford to be discouraged. I have 2 little boys, and I will do everything I can to ensure that they have a great life in a great world. 20 years on, I return to the argument I made as a child with my presence at the Earth Summit. The strongest moral imperative that we have to change and act is our children. It is because of children that we will bring back the connection between cause and effect, between our choices and the global situation today, between privilege and responsibility. In identifying this moral imperative lies our hope. Our hope is love. Love for our children. So my thought to you, in reflecting on 20 years since Rio, and especially for the youth here in the audience today, is this. In 2012, to preserve the stable ecostate that has allowed human beings to thrive, we need nothing short of a paradigm shift. To transform our society, we must somehow find a way to leverage the love that a parent has for their child. Each of us, in all our capacities, whether you are a doctor, a lawyer, student, artist, mother, father, business person, politician. We must make the connection between our political and economic systems and our kin. If we do this, as someone who knows this love, I have to believe we will walk across fire, we will swim across oceans, and we will unite for intergenerational justice. If we are motivated by our youth, by our own children, I believe we will make our actions reflect our words. Thank you very much for listening here 20 years later.